One thing that has really surprised me recently is that you can't watch 28 Days Later anywhere online. I mean, you can by other means. There, you know what I mean, allegedly other means. If you click around, you're more than likely going to accidentally click on something that does get you 28 Days Later. Now, you might get a lot of ads on that, or it might be a little shady in what you click on, but it is very strange how you can't actually watch the movie 28 Days Later anywhere. This is a fantastic film, and it does shock me. And you know what's really crazy is that recently we just got an announcement that 28 years later is coming out. I find it a little strange they're skipping 28 months later, but I did realize that online searching, there is a spin-off or rip-off, better claiming, of 28 months later that exists. Has nothing to do with anything that has ever been done by 28 days later or 28 weeks later, just FYI. I almost fell for it. I saw it and I was like, I watched the trailer and was definitely embarrassed by what I saw. So maybe there's a copyright issue and why they're going 28 years later. But it is interesting considering this film was released in 2002, and now we look at the years 2024 and seeing how far, I guess, zombie films have come along. 28 Days Later is what innovated the zombies running genre before Dawn of the Dead came out. Dawn of the Dead is a fantastic film, was definitely a innovative film in its own right, but 28 Days Later really kicked things up. And it was, I guess you could call it still an independent film. While it did get picked up more so later, and I consider it a cult classic. Even the budget they had was controversial, definitely the biggest budget whatsoever. And we'll talk about some of that camera work as well in just a minute, of what makes it unique as well. This was Cillian Murphy's breakout role, so when you look at his internet database of movies, I mean, this was the movie that really set him apart. They went for a no-name actor at the time, and it's crazy to think that Cillian Murphy was a no-name. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? But it was fascinating to see just how far Cillian Murphy has come with his acting career, but also the luck they had getting Cillian Murphy, which is why I find it such a shame that you can't get this movie or watch it anywhere online, because it's such a staple. Even when you go online and look, you can't even buy it anywhere. You can buy it and there's a VHS like it's $140 on Amazon, and you're going to be paying an outrageous price for a copy of the movie that you don't even know if it's going to be opened or if it's going to be scratched up. I know I got my copy downstairs, and then finding this online was a bit of a pain. And I did find a version of it because, you know, you got to preserve your media, right? I know that there was a video that came out where everyone's talking about physical media again. It's always a big hot topic, you know, owning your own copy. Because what happens when these streaming services aren't allowed to showcase these movies anymore? I don't really know the reason why you can't watch this online. I have to assume it has to do with legal purposes and who owns the rights to the studio and who owns the rights for 28 Days Later. I mean, 28 weeks later, you can go see. That's showcased everywhere, so if you enjoy that movie, but I have to say 28 Days Later is still the better film. Even though 28 Weeks Later even had Jeremy Renner, you know, our Hawkeye. I'm going to leave it in there, just a stumble of words. But it is interesting to see how crazy they managed to find great actors in a franchise that was, I guess like you said now, like I've mentioned many times, is a cult classic. Now, the interesting part about this film is that it was filmed on a cheaper camera as a specific art direction. They wanted the quality of the film to look rough, gritty. Towards the end, they got a higher budget, but at the end of the film, you'll notice that the quality is all of a sudden up there. This is kind of a hard film to watch on a high definition monitor. Let's say if you're watching in a 4K, because it doesn't look great at all. But the way it's shot, I'm going to overlay some of the shots here. Some of the moments when they actually gather the images are just fantastic. They're gritty, they're open, they're gorgeous. The lay of the land, when you see the flowers, whenever you see them driving through the city, the chaos, the contrasting colors as well from the dark, bleak moments of this film are also fantastic. And what is also great about this film is that yes, it is a horror film, but the characters do have growth. You know, we see Selena really start the film as somebody who's willing to leave anybody on a dime for her own survival, but then really learns later about life is worth living with others who mean something to you. And same with Cillian Murphy's character, Jim, really discovering who he is and fighting for what he wants. And I mean, he woke up in a world with nothing. And it even was said in The Walking Dead that the inspiration for having Rick Grimes at the start wake up in the hospital was 28 Days Later, which is even fascinating to hear, knowing that 28 Days Later really gave us that perspective on the zombie genre, because it was getting really slow. It was kind of dying out, and then all of a sudden we had all these games come out. You know, we had Dead Rising, we had Left 4 Dead, we had everything start to come out and build around this time period. And I mean, everyone could have their own innovative idea, but a lot of people give testament, even though they're not zombies, they're called infected. And believe it or not, they never even mention the word zombie in 28 Days Later. They call them strictly infected. Because they are rage induced. They do have some sort of consciousness. I know during the film there was an editing error where one of the zombies says, "I hate you." They didn't mean for that to be in the film. That was in the commentary that they even said was a mistake. I wish I could find it online. I remember watching it, the documentary, and then talking about it. It was very interesting to kind of hear about. But their unique approach to storytelling is what I found very, very interesting as well. I could say interesting, but I find this film fascinating. I love this film to death. Its storytelling goes from the open landscape to enclosed spots to where the characters really talk about the grim experiences that they are experiencing in like an airport, for example, that really dive you into this world and makes you want to learn more. And it was all because of the characters are just interesting. I would say probably the least interesting characters are probably the father and daughter, as they work as a story for Jim and Selena more so, just because the daughter doesn't have a great character arc. She serves to give more power to the main character, and so does the father, where, I mean, he works as a fatherly figure, I guess you could say, towards Jim. You know, there was a moment in the film where he says something along the lines like, "Thank you, Dad," which is interesting for Jim. He seems more dominant, but even he kind of defers to, because I always forget his age in this movie, but he's not, because Cillian Murphy always looks a little older, that it does surprise me a bit. Overall, the film, in terms of direction, you can poke flaws at this film and really talk about where maybe why would the chaos happen so quickly, end of the world. But I try to think of it this way, is that when people really think it's the end of the world and they start to panic a lot faster when they're truly at the end of the ropes. These characters really thought this was it. And a lot of the soldiers did too, that this was the end of times and that was it, which is why they're all around the table talking. I've seen some counter arguments about this film talking about where, oh, well, you know, how could they disassemble so quickly and divert to their basic needs? I mean, if you put somebody in any sort of end of the world scenario, people showcase their true colors. And I always find that interesting, where it's like Dawn of the Dead, where it's Night of the Living Dead, where people really show you who they truly are. That's kind of like the Joker, or truly who you are, where you really see them come to the forefront, because they can't hide it, because they go to their natural basic instincts of survival, and their survival, whether they're a piece of crap or whether they're a good-hearted person, and what that means. And that's where I really respect Jim a lot in this movie, is that his character is not necessarily a hero, but just a kind-hearted person. And then seeing him do some horrible things later is pretty eye-opening and makes you think, oh my gosh, how could this character do this? But he's one of those characters where, if I relate it to like Hunter x Hunter, they're inherently flawed, where they are a good person, but when it comes to defending others, they will sacrifice or hurt or do things that they need to do for their character development for others, right? You know, I use Gon as an example, because Gon in Hunter x Hunter is a character for anybody who watches anime, and I definitely plan on covering more anime here on the channel. That I find interesting is how Gon is a lighthearted character, but probably one of the most psychotic characters as well. I find that really interesting in storytelling. I mean, comment down below how many times have I said interesting in this video. I don't normally say that all the time, so maybe this is video specific. I'm just overall fascinated with 28 Days Later, and I find it an absolute crime that you can't watch this online. And 28 Years Later is coming, and I'm very excited for this franchise coming back, because even though 28 Weeks Later wasn't a fantastic, perfect movie, it was still a great film, and I really enjoyed it. And I was rewatching it, and the opening sequence is, my gosh, gut-wrenching. It's amazing. So I'm excited for this franchise. I hope that they figure this out, because I would love for more people to watch this. If you have this movie, give it another watch. Let me know what you think. I find it shocking. So this isn't clickbait. Maybe hopefully by a month or two from now, but I've seen this movie not online for quite some time, which is why I've showcased those shots. But I appreciate all of you guys for watching, listening to me. The fact that we're excited for this franchise, what I love about this movie, why 28 Days Later deserves to be in our hands to watch, because it's a movie, if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's that follow-up to what makes Dawn of the Dead so great. And the greatest comparison I can give in the film, as we kind of step away, is when they are in the mall and they're enjoying the riches of it, you know, of all the free stuff, essentially, because nobody's around. The same thing happens in 28 Days Later whenever they're in the store and they're getting all kinds of stuff out of it, right? And granted, I know it's cheesy because like, how is it that that story is perfectly intact? But for story's sake, when it comes to story, there are things that I'm willing to turn a blind eye to because of what the story is trying to tell us. So excuse me there. But thank you again so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all of you guys that are joining me on the journey in this channel and the fact that, hey, we're consistently posting. So I'll see you guys on the next one.